Let's dive on into a 2024 fantasy football mock draft. Many people have their home league drafts coming up this weekend, fellas, so we are going to give them an early pick strategy, a middle pick strategy, and a late pick strategy as well. So, Tyler, you are picking from the 2nd spot, Cameron from the 6th, and I'm drafting from the 10th. So let's dive on into this thing, give the people what they want. With the first overall pick goes Christian McCaffrey. Tyler, you are on the clock. Who's your first selection going to be?
So now the second pick, it's kind of interesting because CeeDee Lamb has officially signed his contract extension with the Dallas Cowboys. So the argument of like, well, he could hold out for a period of time is now kind of out the window. I'm still going to go Tyreek Hill over CeeDee Lamb. I just have more confidence and I feel more secure with Tyreek Hill over CeeDee Lamb with, CeeDee Lamb not playing any preseason. Tyreek Hill has at least been in the building with Miami. That's why I lean Tyreek, but you certainly cannot go wrong with CeeDee Lamb at the 102 now.
Yeah, now that CD got paid, that is a safe pick to make it the 102. For the longest time, I had preferred Tyreek, but now that CD's got the bag, I do prefer him to Tyreek. I've always preferred him to Tyreek, but you cannot go wrong there. As Bijan Robinson and Amon-Ra St. Brown go afterwards, Cameron at the 106 here. You got a few different options here. You still got a Breece Hall on the board. You've got a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase on the board. Where's your leaning?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those three, and I'm just trying to decide how different I want to be because usually I'm a Jefferson guy here, but it's very close for me between Jefferson and Breece, and I think I'm gonna try the Breece build, try the running back first build, just so I can see how it plays out because, like you said, we're trying to get ready for our own league, so I want to see if I get the 106. What does it look like if I go Breece Hall first? So I'm going to take Breece Hall because, like I said, him and Jefferson are right, neck and neck in my rankings.
Yeah, and Breece Hall, probably the best running back with a shot at the overall running back one this year that is not named Christian McCaffrey, as Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Garrett Wilson go off the board next. And this is a very easy pick for me because at the 110, I am going to take a wide receiver for sure, and it's going to be Garrett Wilson or A.J. Brown. Garrett Wilson happened to go the pick right before this, so I am going to go A.J. Brown because there is a tier gap after Garrett Wilson. I have A.J. Brown ranked ahead of Garrett Wilson, but it's A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and then tier down to Puka Nacua, who goes after Jonathan Taylor at the 112, followed by Jahmyr Gibbs. Saquon Barkley comes back to me. This is also another very easy pick for me because at this point, I want to make sure I snag an elite running back as well. And with Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley off the board, this is a easy Kyren Williams pick for me here. In our last podcast, we went through our favorite picks in each round. Kyren Williams is my favorite pick in the second round. So to start, A.J. Brown, Kyren Williams, that is like a dream for me. And if it's Garrett Wilson, Kyren Williams, I like it just as much. So that is a smash start for me to split there. I think if you have a late pick, that is the way to go. Even if you get like a Puka Nacua, Jahmyr Gibbs, as Team 12 did in this draft, to me, that is the best start hands down, just because the tier fall in wide receivers is so I don't want to say it's massive, but it's big enough where it gives me pause on drafting a running back in the first round. Marvin Harrison followed Kyren Williams, then Devontae Adams, Travis Etienne. So Cameron, back to you. Still a handful of decent wide receivers on the board here. I assume you're leaning that way.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me wish at this point I would have gone Jefferson, just seeing the board. The top two guys for me right now are Drake London, and then either Derrick Henry or Devon Achane. Usually here, I probably would lean Achane just for the upside shot. However, it does feel like you pigeonhole yourself if you go two running backs to start. So I think I am going to go Drake London being my best wide receiver on the board here. However, I personally think a Jefferson Achane start would have felt a little bit better for me. I think I would like that a little bit more, but I'm not upset by the Breece Hall Drake London start.
I think Drake London is towards the top of that tier when there's a gap between Garrett Wilson and the next tier. Drake London is definitely towards the top of that tier. So I definitely don't hate the pick there. I'm actually a bigger believer in Drake London than most people this year, it seems like. Travis Kelce, Derrick Henry, Josh Allen followed. So Ty, back to you. A few of those running backs Cameron mentioned still on the board. Where's your leaning here? Are you thinking Devon Achane with the double Miami start? If so, give us the reasoning for that. But if you're not, who are you taking?
Yeah, if this was best
I
ball,
set you
I
up to
think I
take
would.
Achan, I realize, and I'm like, that was a terrible transition question. Ty, who's your pick going to be? That's what I'm going to ask you.
I think the guy at the top of the draft board right now is Chris Olave, and I think for you guys, he would be your pick here. After going back through my rankings, I'm not really so sure about Chris Olave at the end of the second. I don't mind him at the beginning of the third round, but knowing who else is on the board at this point, I don't feel like taking Chris Olave here because, yeah, like you said, like Devon Achane's on the board. This isn't necessarily best ball, and I don't want to put too much, I don't want too many Miami Dolphins right at the top of my draft. And you guys are going to say this is pretty chalk, but I really don't care because I think he's worth this draft capital. I'm going Isaiah Pacheco because he's my guy. I got confidence in him. I went through my rankings, as I said, for the third time now. Pacheco's my running back 6 now. Surprise. Like I have a ton of confidence in Isaiah Pacheco this year. Yeah, he's the one guy that I'm like, you know what? I can take him ahead of his ADP at the end of the second and feel comfortable doing so versus some of the other guys where I was like, man, I'm really kind of making exceptions for those guys. So going Pacheco in the second, then followed after that went Devon Achane and Josh Jacobs. So team 1 with a heavy running back
Triple
start.
anchor RB start. That's what we call that.
That's that
Dan
is
Campbell
bold.
tough.
So up again here in the third round, we're going pass catcher. Sam Laporta's right there. I'm not taking a tight end this early just yet. Chris Olave is still on the board. I think
you said you like him early third round.
Yeah, I did, but there's another wide receiver that I actually have still ranked inside my top 12, who is still available. It's Mr. Nico Collins. I think there is some, there's some pushback that can be had of like somehow he's going to still stay inside the top 12 despite this team adding Stephon Diggs. And I kind of understand that, but I think Nico can still crack the top 12 just because it really is this massive tier after the first 8 wide receivers that it can really go any kind of way. It can end and finish however you think. For me, Nico Collins still being the downfield big play guy in this Houston offense with his red zone upside, I still think that there's an outside chance that he can finish top 12, and my rankings show that. So I'm going to go Nico Collins as my wide receiver 2.
I really don't hate that because I do think there's a tremendous amount of upside for Nico Collins. Like I do think despite us not liking CJ Stroud at cost this year and being very outspoken on that, I do think it's fair to ask the what if things do go right. And Nico Collins is actually just a smash pick in the third round. And he ends up returning, like early second round kind of capital. I think that's totally a possibility. So I like taking the upside shot there with Nico Collins, especially when Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk, and Chris Olave go next. I think it's fair to say none of those guys have the same upside that Nico Collins could have this year. So Cameron, you are on the clock here after going Breece Hall, Drink London. Where are you looking to go here?
I'm going to be honest. I don't feel like I'm used to being in this spot. I'm looking at the draft board. I'm like, holy cow, there's like 7 different ways I can go here. I kind of like it. I was really hoping Olave would fall to me. He goes 1 pick before me. But at the same time, I know if I take Olave, we post it tomorrow on the socials and everyone's going to be like, there's no way this team could happen. No possible way. So I'm glad we avoided that catastrophe at least. But yeah, Sam Laporta, not a guy who's usually here, the mid-third. He's an interesting guy to think about right here. However, I do know that Mark Andrews and Trey McBride are more hopefully going to be, back there in the 4th for me. So I think I'm going to pass on Laporta, even though he has fallen a little bit. Seeing Jalen Hurts right here is an interesting one to me. I think it's a good pick. It also ensures Lucas can't get his Jalen Hurts AJ Brown stack, so that would be kind of fun. And then 2 wide receivers as well, Jalen Waddle and Cooper Kupp. And, it's just fun that I have so many different directions. I'm going to take the guy that I want to take here. And that is actually Mr. Cooper Kupp. He is my highest ranked wide receiver left. And I understand, Jalen Hurts. I think he was probably my next closest pick, just knowing I'd get him in the 3rd. But I am going to go Cooper Kupp in the wide receiver 2.
I think that's a good strategy at that point as well, because when the wide receivers come back to you, a lot of the guys that we like with top 20 upside this year, a lot of those guys are off the board at that point. So I think you got to get them while they're hot, while they're still on the board. So I do like Cooper Kupp there, especially. We still don't have much clarity on Puka Nakua's knee injury, which is a little bit concerning for me at this point, but Cooper Kupp could easily return on this value, no question. Sam Laporta did go afterwards, Deebo Samuel after that, and then Lamar Jackson. Fellas, you want to know what's a travesty? The fact that 90% of people who watch our videos on YouTube aren't actually subscribed to the channel. 90% of the watch time on our videos, they're not subscribed to the channel. It's technically 89%, but I'm going to round up because 90% is a cleaner number. YouTube.com/@thefantasyfootballfellas. If you're not subscribed over there yet, we are posting videos 3 times during the week, 3 times all throughout the season as well, to help you win your fantasy football leagues this year. So if you're watching right now, make sure you subscribe. To the 10% of you out there, you all are phenomenal. But if you're not subscribed, make sure you do and turn on those notifications as well for content all throughout the season. You can also listen to our podcast feed as well. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from, you can just search Fantasy Football Fellas there. The other travesty is that Jalen Hurts is going as the quarterback 4 on Sleeper right now, and that is a smash pick in this spot for me. With an A.J. Brown start, followed by Kyron Williams, the fact that Hurts is going as the quarterback 4 is just disgusting. And not disgusting, it's wonderful. I got the board to fall to me perfectly. As Stephon Diggs, Patrick Mahomes, James Cook, and Rachaad White followed. See, this is when people will be like, oh, no way you can get Jalen Hurts in the 4th. I don't know why they're smoking, but they smoked half a pack of cigarettes before they make that comment. But Jalen Hurts here in the 4th. This turn can happen where you get someone taking, maybe it's not a Stephon Diggs, but maybe it's a DJ Moore after his season last year. If someone at the turn really needs a running back to grab a James Cook, Patrick Mahomes, if Lamar Jackson didn't go ahead of Jalen Hurts, he could go on the turn. There is a world where Jalen Waddle can fall into the 4th round. And he, once again, as a flag plant for me, is a smash pick there. And I am in love. I am absolutely in love with the start of A.J. Brown, Kyron Williams, Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Waddle. What a brutal run of wide receivers here. Wow. That makes up for 2 running backs going on the turn because DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, and Malik Neighbors all went before Cameron's next pick. So, Cameron, it's a good thing you went Cooper Kupp because, like I said, these guys who perceivingly have top 20 upside, they're all off the board right now.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like Ty last draft, he just sits in the middle and everything falls to him. Then I get Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, and Malik Neighbors to go 4 picks ahead of me when I want a wide receiver. It's just you can't even make this stuff up at this point. So it's just absolutely ridiculous. Well, I talked about going tight end here earlier because I passed on Sam Laporta. There goes my trade. I'm just so furious. I can't even think right now. But I think for right now, it just comes down to Trey McBride or Mark Andrews, and I like both of them. We know one of my flag plants was Kyler Murray, so I think I'm going to lean Trey McBride and hope that, hey, maybe Kyler falls to me a little bit later and I can get a little stack. So I'm going to take Trey McBride. I have them close enough. I do have Mark Andrews higher in my rankings, but I have them close enough that for me it does come down to preference when I'm picking between those two.
Yeah, you can't go wrong tight end in this range either. I mean, I've even done some mock drafts where if I don't get a Jalen Hurts in the 3rd round and I take one of those wide receivers and I don't get a quarterback in the wraparound, I'll start 2 wide receivers and running back and a tight end instead. So I think at any point in the 4th round to take one of these elite guys, a Trey McBride, a Mark Andrews, Ty, if you even decided to go like a Dalton Kincaid here, I wouldn't blame you because CJ Stroud, Michael Pittman, and Mark Andrews went off the board after Cameron's pick of Trey McBride. But which route are you looking to go here after starting Tyreek Hill, Isaiah Pacheco, and Nico Collins?
It's always a risky game to try and game the sleeper bots, but I have the luxury of doing so just because it's one team that's picking before I pick in the 5th. And just looking at their team, they have 3 running backs, and there are 2 running backs that I like. So the odds of them taking both running backs, pretty slim. So with that, I'm then looking
quintuple anchor RB.
Seriously,
You not heard of that strategy?
If that happens, we need to no, you guys won't let me restart. I will just throw away the draft. I might just like scroll all the way down
After
to
last
player.
week. No, you get whatever comes to you now.
I'll just take like Cole Turner, Commanders tight end at the 502 then.
Just try to get us thrown out.
Right. Just throw out the draft. I'm going to go receiver here. And I am going to go with Devontae Smith. Wow. Oh boy.
The quintuple anchor running back. Yes.
Whoa.
Yes. Yes.
The best part is,
I love this.
They didn't even take the top running back according to ADP. They still left Kamara on there, who was the top running back according to ADP. They went down the board to pick 2 running backs instead of him.
Wow.
Oh, brutal.
That was scary. I did not think that was possible. I'm going to take the running back that I wanted, Alvin Kamara. I know that Ryan Ramczyk is out for the season and that this offensive line is pretty shaky, but you're not drafting Kamara for the rushing upside that he has. You're drafting him because he's essentially essentially a wide receiver out of the backfield for the Saints offense. So I with his receiving upside, yeah, like it's not sexy, right? Kamara in past years was a super sexy pick because he's entered the first round with elite receiving upside. The receiving work will still be there. But it's one of those plays where you're not going to watch him. You don't really want to watch the stat line kind of rack up during a game, but you know that it's going to be good for your fantasy team because that kind of receiving work is unmatched at the running back position.
With no offensive line protection from Ryan Ramczyk means less time for Derek Carr to throw the football, which means more checkdowns to Alvin Kamara in some sense as well. So I love the pick, Alvin Kamara, here at this point in the early 5th round. That's a no-brainer there. James Conner, Tank Dell, Aaron Jones go afterwards. Cameron, man, you still got a nice little Dalton Kincaid slide you here if you want to.
Yeah, I know.
Bully tight end here because, that's a strategy we believe in redraft. Obviously, you're not looking tight end at this point, even though it is a value on Dalton Kincaid. You're also not a fan of Zay Flowers, who's at the top of the board here. So which direction are you looking to go?
I will admit, Anthony Richardson's a little tempting here in the middle of the 5th. He feels like a hard one to pass up on. However, I just don't love when I go top 5 rounds and I get a quarterback and a tight end, both. I just don't feel like I fill out the rest of the team quite as well. For me, it really comes down to Amari Cooper or T. Higgins. And I have Amari Cooper ranked higher. My ranking says it's by quite a bit. But if you look at the fantasy point wise, it's actually decently close. And I think I'm leaning T. Higgins a little bit here. But now that I say it, because I was going to say I'm leaning T. Higgins because I just don't want 2 older wide receivers, right? And just worried about injury. But Joe Burrow's coming off that injury as well, right? So it's not like it's foolproof either way. So you know what? I am just going to go with who I have ranked higher of the 2. Trust my rankings here. I am going to go Amari Cooper. I think T. Higgins might play a little bit better on the socials for people voting. But I'm not going to pander. I'm going to trust my rankings, and that the people have some common sense, even though I think T. Higgins may play a little bit better. And of course, this is unbelievable. The board is just falling to Lucas right now. It's ridiculous.
Come on.
Hold on. I mean, hey, I do think that people like Amari Cooper. I mean, I think that people can realize that with Deshaun Watson, he was on an incredible pace last year. And people say, well, Deshaun Watson was pretty bad last year. I mean, all Deshaun Watson has to do is play more competent this year. People say, well, he was competent last year. Yeah, to some extent. But even if this team is going to shift to more of a pass-first approach, I think Amari Cooper is a fine pick. I think that people recognize that. As Zay Flowers, George Kittle, and Dalton Kincaid go afterwards, I am not below pandering to the people, though. I'm going to take T. Higgins because that's a fun pick I need to make there at this point with him being my wide receiver 3 after going Jalen Hurts and Jalen Waddle the 2 previous rounds. I'm glad I did because Kyle Pitts, George Pickens, Terry McLaurin, and Keenan Allen all went afterwards. This is fascinating that Anthony Richardson has taken quite a slide. I'm not going to take Anthony Richardson here. I have zero reason to take Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, what's wrong with Bully QB?
Yeah, because we're not in best ball, you silly geese. So no Anthony Richardson here for me. Cameron, you might get lucky and get like an absolute tumble on Anthony Richardson. I'll pray for that for you. I doubt you will though.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
not
go
a
ahead and take my next highest ranked running back here. I like the 3 wide receiver start. I have a good amount of confidence in my 3 wide receivers. I really wish I would have gotten like a George Kittle to slide to me instead of having to go T Higgins, because I think I would have been content with any of the other wide receivers that might have made it around the turn. But I'm going to go ahead and take David Montgomery. Again, Jahmyr Gibbs still dealing with that hamstring injury. He should be ready for week 1. That is a brutal fall to you, Cameron, as two of the quarterbacks you were hoping for were taken. But the thing with David Montgomery is that I think if anything, he is consistent. He will give you the touchdowns. What was that?
Button bar.
Me being upset. That's what it was. I was furious.
Like, David Montgomery is fine. I love him as a compliment to a guy like Kyron Williams, who I think is high upside, very explosive. But if he misses time, David Montgomery can be the reliable anchor that I need in my running back room. Chris Godwin, Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow went afterwards. So Cameron, to you, you were talking about Anthony Richardson last round. You had mentioned Joe Burrow as well. Some decent picks on the board. I got a feeling I know who you're going with here, though.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't.
This seems like a perfect range to take your guy.
Christian Kirk.
Yeah, how'd you know?
So you're right. This is probably where
whoever's at top of the board.
This. I feel like this is where I probably should take Kyler, knowing Ty needs a quarterback as well. Knowing that there are 3 teams coming around who need a quarterback. So I will take Kyler. I'll reach a little bit and just make sure that I have that, knowing I need a running back, and the 3, Swift, Ramondre, Najee, and Pollard, who are all projected, to go before they come back. I'm not really in love with any of them. So I am going to go Kyler Murray here.
Which I think is a perfectly fine pick. This is about knowing your league mates as well, because, if Ty would have been on the turn at this point, he would have been eyeing Kyler Murray as well and taken him. So again, part of drafting in fantasy football is knowing your league mates. It might mean taking a guy earlier than you need to, but with a build like Cameron's thus far, when you can anchor RB with Breece, there's a lot of guys that you can wait for later and fill out your running back 2 spot in different ways. Like, if your only weakness on your team is figuring out who your running back 2 is going to be, I think that's a really good spot to be in starting the season. Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Christian Kirk all go afterwards. So tides to you after going 3 wide receivers and 2 running backs through the first 5 rounds. Who are you thinking here in the 6th?
We're going to go with Rashee Rice. It's been widely speculated that the reason why the Chiefs went out and signed Juju Smith-Schuster was because that they're anticipating a suspension coming for Rashee Rice. I don't necessarily understand it, just because we were thinking of Juju Smith-Schuster as quite literally an afterthought in the New England offense. And then all of a sudden, because he signed with the team that he played with for 1 year, he's all of a sudden, like, Rashee Rice is automatically a not so good pick. In this build, he's my 4th wide receiver. Like, I don't need him to play right away. So if he does play the entirety of the year, awesome. But even if he is suspended, when he comes back, I'm in an even better spot then too. So going 4th wide receiver there, feels like the right pick there.
Well, and Rashee Rice is your wide receiver 4 is just nutso. I mean, when you got Tyreek Hill, Nico Collins, Devonta Smith, Rashee Rice, I mean, those are all 4 of those guys are guys who could be top 20 wide receivers this year. So to have him as your wide receiver 4 with a Pacheco and Kamara as well, I mean, that's got to feel super nice as Rome Odunze and Evan Ingram go on the turn. Are you looking quarterback or tight end at this point, Ty?
Quarterback is intriguing. Just with Dak Prescott and Jordan Love on the board. I've got Jordan Love as my quarterback 7 this year, and Dak is my quarterback 9. So they are kind of in the same tier of quarterbacks. And when I look at other quarterbacks, I'm just not really thrilled with what's left. Like, the only intriguing option is Jaden Daniels, and the odds of him actually coming back to me, I don't feel so great about it. So I am going to go quarterback. I am going to go with Dak Prescott here, which kind of stinks now, kind of realizing that I could have gone CD at the 102 and then gotten Dak here to go with the Dallas stack. But it doesn't really matter at this point. I'm getting the quarterback that, is going to be the leader in one of the better offenses in the league this year.
Which, again, hindsight's 2020, but Dak is still a great pick in the 7th round now that he has his number one weapon back in CeeDee Lamb, who got paid. Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard, Xavier Worthy afterwards. Cameron, to you. Few running back names on the board here if you want to finally lock down that running back 2 spot, or are you looking a different route?
Yeah, I feel like I should go running back, and I know I kind of should, especially with Raheem Mostert here. Calvin Ridley is really tempting for me. I've really shot up on Calvin Ridley over the last little bit. I think, I don't know. I lost my earbud. I think that he is just in an offense I think they're going to try to air it out a lot more than they did last season. And I think he is the wide receiver 1 in this offense. But like I said, I think Mostert is the pick. He's the last guy I think truly has top 15 upside. I shouldn't say truly, but the last guy I think has top 15 upside. That's well within the range of outcomes, not like, oh, he has to be perfect to hit it. Like, I just think he's in an offense that as long as he's healthy, he's going to score a lot of touchdowns, get a lot of rushing yards.
100% agree. I've said this multiple times. It feels like the primary reason people don't want Raheem Mostert this year is, well, he's not going to have 20 touchdowns again this year. Therefore, I don't want him. This is a guy who he's older, but he doesn't have the tread of a 32-year-old running back or a 30-plus-year-old running back, special teamer most of his career. There's still a real possibility, he scores 12 touchdowns this year. And that is more than going to pay off at a 7th round price tag. As Jaden Reed, Jalen Warren, and Zamir White go off the board next. Has Jalen Warren shot up sleepers board? Because for the longest time, the dude was a late 8th round pick. And is that finally correcting now?
That's a full round jump now. Correction.
Okay.
He was still listed on their board lower, even on this one. Right. So the sleeper bot reached on him. He was down, close to pick 96, and he went, way earlier. So it is interesting.
So that was my question, because for the longest time it was right. It was at that right around that 8-9 turn you would have to go and take a Jalen Warren kind of player. So anyways, he goes here. I don't have a problem with it. I always think Jalen Warren should have been a 7th round pick before his hamstring injury, but Zamir White goes off the board as well. Cameron, you brought up Calvin Ridley. I need a tight end as well, but here's what I'm recognizing. There's 3 tight ends on the board, and Brock Bowers, David Njoku, and Jake Ferguson. Team 11 already has a tight end, and unless if Team 12 decides to go 2 tight ends here, I'm feeling good about whichever option I get. I don't want to be left with Brock Bowers, preferably. He's my least favorite out of those 3. So what I'm going to do is, recognizing I can game this board pretty well, again, unless if Team 11 wants to take 2 tight ends as well, I'm going to go ahead and game the board here and take Calvin Ridley because I love him as my wide receiver 4. I think he could absolutely thrive this fell perfectly, in this Tennessee offense that's going to be an air raid offense under Brian Callahan. If Will Levis figures it out, Calvin Ridley's a smash here, and he doesn't have as many red zone drops as he did last year. Jordan Love, David Njoku, Jordan Addison, Nick Chubb all go off the board next. Sleeper bots didn't get the update that Nick Chubb's going to be put on the pup list. 8th round Nick Chubb was always a trap, was it not? We said it, and then we were too scared to actually verify the opinion because it's Nicholas Jamal Chubb. We were going to be wrong no matter what. So I can't really victory lap it because we chose to not have a stance. But I will say my initial inkling was that Nick Chubb was going to miss the start of the season. Brings me back to my tight end spot, though. I can't wait any longer. This is an easy pick here. This is Jake Ferguson, who, again, this Dallas offense is back to full strength with CeeDee Lamb getting his contract. Jake Ferguson, nearly 4 touchdowns less than expected based on his usage last year. This is a guy I love in the 8th round. If you get to start like this, 4 wide receivers, 2 running backs. We can piece together the running back room later, but to get a tight end who I think has legitimate top 7 upside this year, that's a no-brainer in the 8th round for me. Austin Eckler, Javonte Williams, Jonathan Brooks all go off the board next, which is a tough stretch of running backs, Cameron. But my guess is that you weren't looking running back here. Who are you looking to take?
Well, we know who I want to take is Deontay Johnson. I just feel like I should, for the people, mix it up a little. I just feel like he's just my default pick. I like JSN. I like McConkey here. It's just when I look at my rankings, I just have such a stark, difference between Deontay and those two that it feels wrong to take anybody else. So I am going to take Deontay Johnson here. But McConkey and JSN were both kind of in that mix for me, as well as Christian Watson, actually.
Yeah. I mean, at some point you just have to go with your rankings of guys you believe in. And you're right. As much as you love JSN, he's probably going to be the 1B at best behind DK Metcalf, I would assume. Deontay Johnson is a guy who could draw 150 targets this year and just volume his way to a gross top 24 finish. And again, to get that as your wide receiver 4 is unparalleled. We can figure out the running back 3 later. Vlad McConkey, Hollywood Brown, Christian Watson, all off the board next. Ty, before you make your pick, I hate to cut you off. I'm going to go ahead and send us into a quick break. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, where it is best ball summer. There are 5 core best ball tournaments to play in with over $20 million up for grabs this summer. You can even take a crack at winning the top prize of $1.5 million in their infamous Best Ball Mania 5 contest. To enter, head to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app and use the code FELLAS to get a first deposit bonus up to $250 and our 2024 draft guide for free. Again, head to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app and use code FELLAS to sign up. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit npcgambling.org. Alrighty, we are back. We are just about 8 rounds through a fantasy football mock draft. Tyler, you are on the clock, having gone Rashee Rice and Dak Prescott in your last 2 rounds. Who are you looking to go with here?
I'm kind of realizing that tight ends there are none that are left that are intriguing to me. And so I'm honestly, people are going to comment like, you didn't take a tight end. I'm just going to punt on the position and just pretty much stream my way through the first half of the season. And then I'll figure out the tight end position later when, we start looking for like fantasy playoffs and stuff like that. So at this point, I'm just going to go best players available according to my rankings. The first guy being Jackson Smith and Jigba. Year 2 is going to be much better than year 1 in a much more pass-friendly offense. For my wide receiver 5 in JSN, who I've got as a fringe top 35 or 30 guy, I should say. Yeah. Winner.
Yep. Love that pick. Don't think you can go wrong with JSN there. Does Keon Coleman, Brock Purdy go around the turn? Who are you looking with next? You only got 2 running backs.
Yeah, we're going to build up some depth at the running back spot. I'm just kind of looking over my rankings. Honestly, like there really is no like good running back pick here. So it's between Brian Robinson Jr. and Devin Singletary, just because I think Singletary will be the 3-down guy in New York, but it won't be great just because I don't think we expect this Giants offense to be great. So with that being said, am I really going to reach on Brian Robinson? Yeah, I am. I just think he's going to be the guy that's going to be on the goal line. He's going to have some red zone opportunities in this Washington offense. I think he's just going to be a little bit better than the Giants offense. That's really what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, at some point, you just look at the guys on the board. Who do I like best? Who I think has the most opportunity to score touchdowns? Because at this point, if you're running back 3, that's kind of what you're looking at with these guys. Does Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, Brock Bowers all go afterwards? Cameron, back to you. Also only have 2 running backs, 4 wide receivers, and a Trey McBride and Kyler Murray stack. Who's your 9th round pick going to be?
This is ridiculous. Every time I want a position, it's like I wanted wide receiver earlier. Oh, there goes 4 in a row. I want running back here. There goes 3 in a row. It's just like unreal. Luckily, the guy I did want at running back is Tyjae Spears. And I was kind of debating between him and Brian Robinson and Zach Moss, and made the decision easy for me. I think he's got a lot of upside. Even if Tony Pollard has it, I think they still use him quite a bit, and just the receiving upside he possesses, getting 70 targets last year. I don't know. I think he's going to have a role no matter what, listed as a co-starter in this offense. So I like him as my running back 3.
Yeah, I think he is an ideal running back 3 if you go a Breece Hall start and then wait to take a Raheem Mostert and then Tyjae Spears. Like, that's a dream running back 3, especially in PPR format. So couldn't agree with you more there. Dallas Goedert, Tua Tagovailoa, DeAndre Hopkins. Tyjae Spears was a guy who I was hoping would make it back to me, and I was hoping Cameron would take one of his other favorite players, Brian Thomas Jr. here. But again, looking who's at the board and looking at the wide receivers who go late, I'm just not a fan of a lot of these guys. I know it's a 14-round draft, but it seems silly to not take a guy who I think could just boom in the second half of the season, who I think actually could end up being the best Jacksonville wide receiver this year. Nothing against Christian Kirk. The dude, he's a slot wide receiver, and he's a fine player, but Brian Thomas Jr. has the potential to be the explosive weapon that this Jaguars team needs in their passing attack. So I'm going to take him in the 9th. One of my favorite picks there is Dalton Schultz, Trey Benson, Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff. I'll go around the turn. And this is where I feel stuck a little bit because there's a few different routes that I can go at running back. I am going to take a running back here. On the one hand, I could go Gus Edwards, who appears to be in line for lead work. I like Kamani Vidal went from being like a cut candidate to like the team's running back 3, and people are getting all hot and bothered by it. I'm like, guys, like, are we going to be this hot and cold on a guy? Like, he's a running back 3. Let's not get it twisted here. There's also been some hype around J.K. Dobbins. So, like, as much as it seems like Gus Edwards is the guy, not coming off of an injury, not a rookie, he seems like the safest pick. I'm not a fan of Zeke at ADP. I'm looking at like Chase Brown, go potential lightning kind of guy if he ends up being the real deal for the Cincinnati Bengals. Jerome Ford with Nick Chubb missing the first 4 weeks. That's a locked in potential top 20 back that we're getting here in the 10th round. And I think that's the route I'm going to go, as I think I'm going to take Jerome Ford here. I think Chase Brown is the more fun pick, but there's still plenty of question marks that I have about Chase Brown. I love the profile. I love the explosiveness. I just think he's going to be more of the in-between the 20s guy, and is he going to get enough PPR work to make that pick worthwhile? When I can take Jerome Ford, who's going to be a top 20 running back probably through the first 4+ weeks of the season, depending on how long Nick Chubb is actually on the PUP list. So I'm going to take Jerome Ford there as my running back 3. Is Romeo Doubs, TJ Hawkinson, Gus Edwards go afterwards. Cameron, back to you. Took your running back 3 and Tyjae Spears last round. How are you going to start to close out this team and with your final 5 picks?
I'm going to get a little gross with it, and not in the direction I normally say when I go say I'm going to get gross with it here, because usually when I say that I go Zeke, but I'm going to actually go with Cortland Sutton here. Just knowing the touchdown upside, knowing what we saw last season, he's the clear one in this offense. Hopefully it's him, and Sean Payton is just kind of funneling Bo Nix in that direction. So I'm going to take the shot, and as the wide receiver 5, I just got a guy who can plug in, and it's kind of like, hey, it's 50-50 shot if he scores a touchdown. I kind of like those odds.
I mean, seeing the emergence of Tim Patrick now, it's like Sean Payton has clearly stated, listening to Underdog Football Show, Sean Payton has showed his hand. He just likes big wide receivers.
Yeah.
Like,
did you
Marvin
hear
Mims is no more?
New report on Tim Patrick? They're looking to trade him now.
Yeah.
Oh, gotta show it. Sure, of course. Gotta show him off in preseason.
Yep.
Remind everybody. Remind everybody
That's
what
exactly
the guy's made of.
Yep.
Oh,
that's exactly
man, we all fell
talk him up. Talk him
it.
up. Make him look good. Yep. And now they're gonna try to trade him. Just nuts.
Fool me in the first half. Not gonna lie, Sean Payton. Not gonna lie. Fool me in the first half. Caleb Williams, Ezekiel Elliott, Cole Kmet go after that. So Tyler, to you in the 10th round here. Who's your pick going to be?
I'm going to go with the fun pick that you mentioned earlier, Chase Brown. If he becomes the third down back, if he becomes the pass catching back, that is a really, really nice role for him to have. And as my 4th running back, it's another great option to have.
Absolutely. That's a smash pick. No brainer there whatsoever. As Jameson Williams, Curtis Samuel go on the turn. Another pick here for you, Ty. Who is it?
So this one's kind of an interesting one, just because again we are punting on tight end, even though even though that Pat Freiermuth is at the top of the board, I'm not going Freiermuth here. If you have seen the snap share of the Steelers pass catchers in the preseason so far, it is not identical, but it is not like a Pat Freiermuth kind of like sneaky breakout season in this Pittsburgh offense, because that's just an Arthur Smith offense for you. So because of that, I'm going to go with a guy that's kind of lower in my rankings. And when I mean lower, like he's barely a top 50 guy, but I'm going to go Blake Corum on the chance that, Kyron Williams misses some time, which I think we would all expect him to, just because being the lead back in this Rams offense, you're not going to be healthy every single game. Kyron missed 4 games last year. So yes, like it is a pretty, neat, it's not a niche pick, but on the games that it is going to be a Blake Corum game, right, with no Kyron Williams, Blake Corum is an instant start in my lineup then.
Absolutely. Blake Corum instantly becomes a top 15 guy. Again, he'd be a super nice one to handcuff with Kyron, but when you got to spend an early 10th round pick on that, and with my build as my running back 3, that's just not what I'm looking to do. So yeah, I love Blake Corum for a team like yours, Ty, where he can be your running back 5. And frankly, you could just kind of stash Blake Corum the entire season if you need to. Justin Herbert, Tyler Lockett, Khalil Shakir go off the board next. So Cameron, it's to you now after going Cortland Sutton last round. You've got 5 wide receivers, 3 running backs. What direction here?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm tempted by names here, and so this is where we kind of get into the rounds for me, where I see names and I'm like, I don't have them ranked highly, but I know the upside, and so I get tempted. And then there's other guys where I'm like, ooh, they could have a role, right? Like Josh Palmer is a guy where I'm not like, oh yeah, he could be top 20, but it's like, man, if he's the wide receiver 1, and for Justin Herbert, and he maintains that role, it's exciting. So I kind of flip back and forth. Xavier Leggetti, Leggetti. He's a guy. For some reason, I get a little excited by it, but I'm not going 2 Carolina pass catchers on my team. Zach Charbonnet was a smash pick here for me. But coming into the season injured with some tightness, the way they've been talking up Ken Walker, I'm just not sure I want to play that game. So I'm going to go with the first guy I talked with. I'm going to go with Josh Palmer and just hope that he can find a way to be that wide receiver 1 in this offense, at least as far as snap share goes. Maybe a similar season to Romeo Doubs last year, right, where you don't really think of him as the wide receiver 1 on the Chargers, but he's playing the most snaps. He's out there the most consistently. So that's the role I'm hoping for Palmer.
It's just not a fun role to predict. It's not a fun guy to draft, but at some point you have to look at these guys in the later rounds and say, yeah, there's actually a good path for opportunity here for Josh Palmer. Which he is a perfectly fine 11th round pick, could easily pay that off. As Trevor Lawrence, Jerry Jeudy, Pat Freiermuth then finally goes off the board. This is a very easy pick for me. I need a running back 4. Rico Dowdle has looked like the best running back at Cowboys camp. He's the odds-on favorite to lead the team in yards by the end of the season at the running back position. So I will go Rico Dowdle there. Oh, that's brutal. I was really hoping to get one of Chuba Hubbard or Zach Charbonnet to come back to me on the turn, as A.D. Mitchell, Jacoby Myers, and as stated, Chuba Hubbard, Zach Charbonnet go back to back. I'm feeling really good about my 5 wide receivers. So as much as I look at Rashid Shaheed here, he's super tempting. But I think what I'm going to do, I'm between 2 guys here. It's 2 running backs. I'm between a J.K. Dobbins or a Ty Chandler. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take the similar route to Ty. As much as I like J.K. Dobbins, that's a guy. It's a guy coming off an Achilles, 2 knee injuries. I mean, nothing has been going right for J.K. Dobbins in his career, and as much hype as he's been getting out of camp, I'm just going to take the guy who I've seen do it on the field in the last year, and I know I'm going to go ahead and take Ty Chandler from Cameron. Aaron Jones hasn't played. He's only played 1 fully healthy season in his career, as J.K. Dobbins goes before Cameron's pick 2. Look, Aaron Jones has only played 1 fully healthy season in his career. So similar to your Blake Corum pick, Ty, I'm banking on Aaron Jones probably going to miss 3 games, 2, 3, 4 games this year. And in those games, I'm looking at a top 20 guy I can slot into my lineup if David Montgomery is hurt, if he's on bye, or Kyron Williams that happens to be out or is on bye. I'm giving myself options at the running back position at this point. So that's why I go Ty Chandler in the 12th, as Aaron Rodgers, Xavier Legette, J.K. Dobbins all go next. So Cameron, you were very clearly looking running back here. 2 guys who were towards the top of the board go. Are you still looking running back?
No, not right now. I'm going to wait. I don't do this very often.
Running back 4?
I don't do this very often, but I think I'm going to take a second quarterback, mainly
What?
because there's 14 rounds, right? So if I'm looking at my league right now, I'm understanding that most teams in with 14 rounds are going to take a second quarterback. So when I'm thinking to waivers, I'm going, there's just not going to be that many people out there. Kyler, like I said, I love Kyler, but if I got the extra roster spot, I want to take another quarterback just to make sure that, he's fully back from the ACL, right? He's not that I don't think he's gonna be great. I just am worried about injury problems. And then I set myself up for a second sack. So I'm gonna take Kirk Cousins in a unorthodox move, I will be honest, but just to pad up the second quarterback, knowing we have an extra bench spot.
Unorthodox move is a good way to put it. I don't think, admittedly, I don't think I'll be drafting another quarterback in this draft, but like again, you laid out a reason why people may take a second quarterback in their draft. And I think especially if you wait and take like a Brock Purdy, like Team One did, I think you're kind of you're pigeonholed into taking a second quarterback then. Not because we don't like Brock Purdy, but because he's not this upper echelon guy that you can start like a Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, where it might actually be beneficial based on the matchup to play a different quarterback. Mike Williams, Luke Musgrave, Gabe Davis off the board next. So, Ty, to you, you've gone 3 straight running backs here. You going to make it one more, or are you going to pivot to tight end finally?
No, he knows where he's going. He knows who he wants here.
Yeah, we're gonna take one more pass catcher. I like taking rookies here, just rookies that have a path to work. I'm gonna go Jalen Polk. I don't care. I don't care how gross it is. If he can be the wide receiver one on the Patriots, that is pretty valuable to me.
Couldn't agree more. It's been a little bit of a, I don't want to say a disappointing preseason. I think we all expected or hoped for Jalen Polk to take a bigger leap in preseason. It's probably been what we should have all expected in the Patriots offense anyways. And as a, day 2 pick. But again, when you take shots on rookies in this range who have opportunity, it's never a bad pick. As Rashid Shaheed and Matt Stafford go on the turn. So Ty, back to you. One of your final 2 picks here. Who's it going to be?
I am gonna go with another handcuff running back. I'm gonna go with Tyler Algier. I think the reports of him getting, that he's gonna play an important role in the offense, I think it's pretty I don't think it means what people think it means. I think they interpret it as like, oh, he's gonna take work away from Bijan Robinson. I don't think that's gonna happen. I really think that Algier is just gonna be kind of a change of pace kind of guy, but that is an important role in an NFL offense. So if then something happens to Bijan, like Algier suddenly becomes one of the most valuable running backs then in fantasy. So not a pick that I'm like expecting a whole lot out of, but I know that, he should get on the field some, and there is some contingent upside.
Yeah, I mean, when they come out and say they're looking to give Algier like 12 touches a game, at some point that's going to turn into fantasy points. At some point he's going to fall into the end zone instead of Bijan, and the Bijan manager's going to have nightmares over it. But when you can draft a guy with that kind of volume in the 13th round, not a lot of these guys are going to handle that unless if their starter gets injured. So I like that Tyler Algier pick there a lot. As Jalen Wright, Baker Mayfield, Antonio Gibson go next. Cameron, the first of your last 2 picks as well. Who's going to be for you?
I'm going to also go running back here. He's my favorite gross running back, my favorite late round running back right now. It's Jaleel McLaughlin. Just understanding, right? Javante's looked pretty good in the preseason, and I think it's the pendulum's kind of going back the other way, where right before preseason started, it was kind of like, ooh, is Javonte even gonna, like, there was whispers, is he even gonna make the team? Like, I remember seeing like that headline where people are like, is he, are they just done with him? And now it's kind of come back to, ooh, Javonte looks really good. But I still think McLaughlin's gonna have a role in this offense, and for as lazy you're getting them, right? Javonte, who's, obviously, I mean, he had one injury, right? I don't, you can't say he struggled with injuries if he's just had an ACL tear, right? I mean, obviously it's a big injury. He missed a lot of time, but it's not like he's had consistent injury, since he's been in the league. But if he were to miss time, just like Ty said, I think McLaughlin slides into maybe not in every down role in the same way Algier does, right? If Algier takes over, Algier's like he's for sure the first, second down back. Like, I don't know if McLaughlin necessarily takes over that role, but the role just continues to get bigger for him. So I like McLaughlin here in the 13th round.
Yeah, there's an opportunity here to be had for Jaleel McLaughlin, who incredibly athletic, can do some of the pass catching, can be the spark in the run game that they need. And he could carve himself out a nice little role. And again, if anything happens to Javonte, it's probably going to be Jaleel McLaughlin dealing with everything in between the 20s, excuse me. So Brandon Cooks, Kendre Miller. Quit drafting Kendre Miller. Don't draft Kendre Miller, please. Gosh, Dennis Allen doesn't want you to draft Kendre Miller. He doesn't.
The coach
Dennis Allen would rather.
ridiculous.
It's absurd. It is absurd. It is horrendous. Dennis Allen is plainly telling you, don't draft the guy. I can't even find him in the practice facility. Marshawn Lloyd goes afterwards. All right, fellas, let's have a little fun. Let's get silly here. Here's the reality. Cameron, you talked about going 2 quarterbacks. I'm also looking at Jake Ferguson as well as my only tight end. Hey, nothing against Jake Ferguson. I like the guy. He's not an upper echelon guy. I'm going to go Taysom Hill.
Oh, no, I knew you were. Shoot, I thought he was going to make it to me. I thought I was going to be able to do it. You suck. You suck.
Look, he has, at least on Sleeper, he has the double quarterback tight end designation. That is still going to be one of the biggest cheat codes in all of fantasy football. When Taysom Hill plays tight end, he plays running back, he plays quarterback, he plays wide receiver, he plays all 4 freaking positions for the New Orleans Saints. So not only am I getting an additional tight end, I'm getting an additional quarterback, and frankly, I'm getting an additional running back as well. I'm getting the ultimate Swiss Army knife in the 13th round. And when your home leagues are going, 13, 14 rounds deep, Taysom Hill has to be a guy you take here, because you're going to regret not having him when he, steals 2 rushing touchdowns in week 1. You're like, man, I wish I would have drafted him, because I thought Alvin Kamara was going to get all those with no Kendre Miller and Jamal Williams not being as good. It's always going to be Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is always going to be a thing in this offense. So he's a no-brainer pick there for me in the 13th. I wanted to make sure I got my hands on him before I got sniped on another player potentially. Adam Thielen, Ben Sennett, Josh Downs, Dontavian Wicks all go off the board. Then I'm debating if I want to go another wide receiver or running back here. And I think because my running back position is just more of a need than my wide receivers, considering I love my AJ Brown, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley start. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another running back. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Ray Davis, who's been getting a nice little bit of camp buzz recently out of Buffalo. If he does end up being the thumper around the goal line for this team, there's touchdown upside here, which at this point, when you're looking at running backs in the 14th round, that's kind of what you're hoping for. So Ray Davis in the 14th there, I am good with. As Kamani Vidal, Braylon Allen, Ricky Pearsall all go off the board. Cameron, your final pick. Who's it going to be?
I'm going to reach way down. That's down fine. The board.
Scroll the F down in the 14th of your home leagues. Do it.
And I'm taking a wide receiver 3 of a team that Mr. Tyler Franklin talked me into. No, Tyler's talked me into him over and over and over and over again. This dude, to finish out last season, let me just read you this. He only was active, or he only
I know exactly who this is.
Week 13, week 17, and his target's 5, 10, 3, 6, 10. It is Mr. Demarcus Robinson of the Los Angeles Rams. Yep. He is 209 on the sleeper board, but I don't care. He had a role last year. Puka's already struggling a little bit with injury. Why not take the chance? I know I got 2 Rams wide receivers, but this team ran 11 personnel more than I think they were top 3 for personnel. Sure. They 12.
No, 11, man. Sorry. You're right. You're right.
Yeah. I know what I'm talking about.
Sorry. I just remember I had a moment of panic. I'm like, wait a second. No.
I just don't remember. They were top 3 in the league last year and run 11 personnel. Yeah. So I like Demarcus Robinson down, at the end of the 14th round.
Can we just be honest about this for a second? Because you said he was like 209, Cameron.
Yeah.
Can we just Darnell Mooney, Troy Franklin, Quinn Johnson, who's gotten some of the worst camp buzz. We haven't heard anything about Demario Douglas. Roman Wilson has had negative camp buzz. Jermaine Burton is having, Yoshivas playing over him. Rashad Bateman, Luke McCaffrey, Michael Wilson, Wandale Robb, Malachi Corley, Marvin Mitt. These are all dudes, they don't provide you any upside. they're barely going to have roles in their offenses when Demarcus Robinson has a very clear and established role as the wide receiver 3 in the 14th round. It is just silly he's going after all those guys because he very clearly has a defined role in this Rams offense and can provide you plenty of big play touchdown upside as well. So I love that pick. Tyrone Tracy, Hunter Henry, Jahan Dotson off the board. We went on a little bit of a Demarcus Robinson love tangent there, Ty. So sorry you didn't get the opportunity to take him, but who's your pick going to be here to wrap out your draft?
I just want to say though, you cut off the list right before your late round darling, and I can't help but feel like
you could
that
throw
was
Javon Baker in there
choice.
too. No. You could throw Javon. I would rather have Demarcus Robinson over Javon Baker. As much as he's up there on the dog meter, right? I would still rather have Demarcus Robinson. Javon Baker is completely unproven. But now that we've talked about Javon Baker,
bring you popcorn. I make people in wheelchairs stand up.
You're required to make Javon Baker your 14th round pick here, Ty. Now that I've played that drop.
No, I'm not, because if I don't take a tight end here, the comments they may not like who actually won the draft. They will be like, Ty didn't take a tight end. So with that being said, I think like if I wanted to be smart, I would take this guy. But you know what? I want to be cool. Okay, I want to be trendy. I want to go.
Hey, he's played a lot, man. He's played a lot.
I have to go with my guy Colby Parkinson.
Colby, yes, we love Colby Parkinson.
Because here's the analysis of it, right? I'm just streaming tight ends until the trade deadline comes around, and then I'm going to trade for one, right? I've got the ammunition to do so. Detroit allowed the 8th most points to tight ends last year on a per game basis. And the over-under projection for LA and Detroit in week 1 is 51.5. Shootout. So I'm just going to take the chance that, hey, maybe Colby Parkinson 3 for 30 and a touchdown. Fine by me. You know what I'm saying? So comments won't understand why I waited for Colby Parkinson, but I hope that those of you that have listened to this point actually understand the strategy here.
Colby Parkinson could just have a massive role in this offense too. I mean, this is the team that talked about trading up for Brock Bowers in the NFL draft. They need a tight end, and they went on and paid Colby Parkinson to be their tight end. So there are worse options that you could take in the 14th round, I believe, than Colby Parkinson as your number 1 tight end. So that is it. That wraps up the mock draft, fellas. Let's do a quick speed recap of our teams. We'll start with Ty at the 102. Go ahead, Ty. Who'd you draft from the 102?
Well, I drafted a losing team because I already know how this is going to go. Tyreek Hill was my 102. Then I grabbed Isaiah Pacheco in the 2nd just because he was the one guy that I trusted the most out of who was on the board. Went upside with Nico Collins in the 3rd. Then rattled off Devontae Smith, Alvin Kamara, Rashee Rice with my next 3 picks. Grabbed my QB1 in Dak Prescott. Got one more wide receiver in Jackson Smith and Jigba. 3 running backs in a row. Then after that with Brian Robinson, Chase Brown, and Blake Corum, and wrap things up with Jalen Polk, Tyler Algier, and my tight end 1 of the season. That's a stretch. Colby Parkinson.
Cameron, your
overall tight end 1.
The overall tight end 1, Colby Parkinson. You heard it here first, folks. Cameron, your team from the 106.
I went Breece Hall, Drake London, Cooper Kupp. I got Trey McBride at my tight end. I grabbed another pass catcher with Amari Cooper. Got my guy, my flag plant, Mr. Kyler Murray. Raheem Mostert got another flag plant, Deontay Johnson. Then took Tyjae Spears, Cortland Sutton, Josh Palmer. Grabbed a 2nd quarterback for the first time in any of our mock drafts with Kirk Cousins. Took Jaleel McLaughlin and our scroll the F down guy, Mr. Demarcus Robinson.
And my team from the 110 started A.J. Brown, Kyron Williams. Again, you could start Garrett Wilson, Kyron Williams. I'm just as pleased with that start. Followed that up with Jalen Hurts in the late 3rd, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins at wide receiver, then David Montgomery, another wide receiver, Calvin Ridley. Got my tight end, Jake Ferguson, Brian Thomas Jr. then, and just took a bunch of running backs afterwards to solidify my running back room. Jerome Ford, Rico Dowdle, Ty Chandler. Snuck in a Taysom Hill in there, who I think, again, will just forever be a cheat code in fantasy football. And then Ray Davis in the 14th to wrap out this draft. We'll put these teams up on the socials today. When you're listening to the show, you can go vote on whose team you like the best. You can do that over on our Instagram, the FF Fellas over there. But you can follow us on the other socials as well. We'd actually really appreciate it if you do, because we just hit a few big milestones recently, fellas. We recently passed 300K on TikTok and over 500,000 total followers across our main media platforms on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So we are super grateful for all of your support. Thanks for supporting the work that we do in our short form content, the work that we do in our long form content. Seriously, when we started the Fantasy Football Fellas, we're like, this would be fun. And now it's like becoming a reality. And that's just so cool to us. So we're super grateful for all your support. If you don't yet follow our other socials, FF Fellas over on Twitter, the FF Fellas, as I mentioned, on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on TikTok and Facebook. You can give our personal socials a follow as well over on X. I am at Lucas Wenzel, Campbell FFF for Cameron, and Tyler _Plath for Tyler. We'll be back tomorrow and Thursday with some league winners. Some players with some league losing downside as well. So make sure you're subscribed again. The 90% of you freeloaders out there, we love you all. Thanks for supporting our work. But also make sure you're subscribed. Turn on those notifications as well so you know when those videos go live. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next time. Deuces.
Deuces.